Guys, welcome back to another Deal Finders podcast. I am here with my buddy Alex Pardo, and we are going to talk a lot about how to start finding deals and where it's going to take you over a long career. Because my friend here, Alex, has changed trajectory, and now he's in a whole new business. I'll give you a sneak peek. He's doing storage units, not mobile storage, but the storage units for people that need to put their stuff somewhere, not their heads, but they're just putting their beds. So we're going to talk about that and where you can go from renting houses to renting space. All right, Alex, I'm so glad you're here, man. Give us a quick intro. Tell us where you are, where you're from, and how you got started in real estate.
Yeah, brother Andrew, awesome to be on the show, man. Love the energy in the podcast and all the content you put out, dude. So it's great to be here. But so again, my name's Alex Pardo, born and raised in Miami. I did not come from a family of entrepreneurs. I can't say that I have a rags to riches story because I certainly don't, but I also lived in a middle-class family. I wasn't starving or anything like that. But man, Andrew, for me, dude, I remember being very young and I grew up playing sports and I was at the baseball park and I remember loving the concept of buying packs of baseball cards for $1 and then essentially trading or flipping them for $2. And I really liked the idea of buying low and selling high. Little did I know I was wholesaling essentially. But something happened when I got older. I went to college and I decided I wanted to go be like a CFO of a big company. And so I started interviewing with big companies, ended up getting a job with General Electric in their financial management program. And I'll never forget, brother, 3 months into that role, I had been averaging 70 to 80 hours a week, primarily in front of Excel and PowerPoint. And I'm not good at a lot of things, but one of the things I think I'm pretty good at is getting clarity about what I want. Sometimes that means figuring out what you don't want, by the way, and then reverse engineering my way to figure out, is the path that I'm on going to get me to where I want to be? And I remember looking at my boss and all the way up the ladder to the CFO, which is the position I thought I wanted to be in. And dude, I wouldn't trade like my life for theirs, no matter how much money they were making. And so I finished that 2-year program, got to experience corporate America. And like I said, now I know that I never want to be back there again. I ended up backpacking around Europe. I left that job. I moved back to Miami. I ended up backpacking around Europe. So we did 53 cities in like 21 countries in 3.5 months. And wow. I mentioned that because on the train rides is when I started to really immerse myself into personal development, consuming books on real estate and business. And I had a big motivator. I was 25 years old at the time. And once that trip was finished, which I was financing on my credit card, I didn't have any money. I was going to be moving back into my parents' house. Yeah. And man, for me at 25 years old, single, like that's not how I drew it up in my head. So I was like, all right, I gotta figure things out. I knew I was going to start a business. I just didn't know what. And I was in Ibiza in an internet cafe. Once a week, I'd stop in, I'd pay 20 euros or whatever to check some email. And I had an email from a friend of mine who was inviting me to a Deals for Marketing bootcamp happening in Atlanta, being put on by a gentleman by the name of Dave Lindahl, who's a big like apartment house guy. Some of your listeners might know who I'm talking about. Well, it was $997. I was coming up on the limit of my credit card. But again, I was like, I don't have a plan B. Like, I don't want to go work for somebody. I want to start a business. I don't know what I'm doing. I paid, I went. When I got back, and I'm going to start to wind down the story, when I got back home from that Marketing for Deals bootcamp, I did the one thing I knew how to do was let me not wait for the stars to align. Let me just like put some stuff out there, put some marketing out there based on what I learned and see what happens. And so, dude, I plucked out, I have the binder here somewhere, but I literally plucked out a pre-foreclosure letter and I went to Kinko's and I made photocopies. And it still had like the 3 black holes.
Yeah, of course.
That's how ghetto the campaign was. And at night, when I was watching TV, I would literally like hand write and stamp and put the stamps and all that. And I sent out, I don't know, like 350 letters to a pre-foreclosure list that I bought at that marketing bootcamp. And about 2.5, almost 3 months later, I ended up closing my first deal. I was so scared to do it by myself that I brought in my buddy who invited me to the bootcamp, and we ended up splitting $44,000.
Wow. I love that, dude. Man, there's so much there to unpack. Y'all, that is, that's the story we hear a lot from, and it's not the same, but it's always, I need to do something, but I don't know what it is. and someone introduces you to real estate, right? And it's like, whoa, this is awesome. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how to do it, but thankfully there's a guide there. You took the course and you actually took steps and took action from the binder they gave you. And you know, as well as I know, you've probably put on courses like this, and we do local meetups here in South Carolina. So anybody out there listening, we do local meetups just about once a week, and we give binders out, and we give instructions, and we give the marketing away, and people just don't do anything with it. That's what hurts me the most. But to see that you did it, and that here you are. When was that? How many years ago was that?
This was, so I went to that Marketing for Deals bootcamp October of 2005, and that deal closed January of 2006.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
And then here we are, right? That just starts the ball going. You just keep going from there.
That's it, man. One thing I want to quickly mention, Andrew, because I think that's the takeaway from the whole story, right? Like when I come on here, my aim and goal is to just try to deliver as much value as possible. And so the takeaway from that for me, from my perspective, is too many people, I think, get involved in this business and try to have everything lined up, right? The stars have to be perfect. They have to know all the answers before they take some sort of action. And that's the one thing I think I had working for me, is that I've always been more of a ready, fire than aim. And most of the time it's worked out. A few times I wish I could have a mulligan and take it back, right? But man, I wouldn't be here if I felt like I needed all the answers, right? Like you're going to learn so much more by actually taking some type of action than you are by like reading a book or something. The education's important. You need that foundation, but then it's what are you going to do with that education?
Yeah, I love it. And to go all the way back to, being a kid selling baseball cards or bubble gum or candy, whatever it is, y'all, that entrepreneurial bug was burning in you. And thankfully, you were at a place where you could take it early in life. I talk to people every single day that they were doing that in daycare or school, and they had that entrepreneurial bug, but they got stuck in that corporate job that you mentioned and stayed. And now they're 40, 50, 60, sometimes just, retired at 65, and they come and find real estate like, I should have been doing this the whole time, right? So, so thankful that you found it when you did. But in this podcast, we like to talk about that very first deal and give actionable steps for people that are listening today that they can go and do that deal. And it's my theory that everyone has a deal in their backyard, in their local community right now. If they would just open up their eyes, their ears, and their mouths to talk about it, that they could go find it today. So yours was in your local community where you were living? Is that where that was?
It was in Miami. My first deal was in Miami.
In Miami, and in the early 2000s, which was a hot time. Miami was kind of ahead of the bubble. And so there was a deal there, right? What did that look like? You said a pre-foreclosure list. Can you tell me a little bit more about the seller situation?
Absolutely. So I'll start by saying this. Knowing what I know now and having had the opportunity to work with a lot of real estate investors throughout the years, I don't want people to think that $44,000 on your first deal is the usual or what's going to happen. The truth of the matter is that my first deal was a short sale. And that's also not how I drew it up. So like I got a really valuable learning lesson and experience because I learned so many things in that one deal. I learned how to have a conversation with the loss mitigation department of a bank. I learned how to negotiate. I learned how to step inside a seller's like living room in their safe space and have them start crying because they're losing their house. And I see their kids sitting on the couch and my heart goes out to them and feeling that like, I want to help this person and feeling like genuinely like the best way to help them is they need to sell because they clearly can't afford it. So there was so much packed in that one deal. And before I kind of, unpeel here a bit and dive a little bit further, one valuable skill that I've taken from all my deals is the Monday morning quarterback concept. So for any football fans watching or anybody who doesn't know, the game is played on Sunday, at least in the NFL. And then on Monday, they go into the film room and they watch the tape on what they did well, what they didn't, and they learn from it. Well, that same framework you can apply in your real estate investing business. You can even apply in your life. So go back to your deals and say, hey, what did I learn from that? What could I have done differently? How could I have had this conversation or done this or done that. And that's one thing I started to do pretty early on in my conversation, in my journey. And I started to actually document it. And then I started to have conversations on the podcast about it. But so that first deal was a direct mail campaign. And I remember when I got the call, I had a script from that same manual, and I just fumbled my way through it, Andrew. I remember feeling nervous. I almost felt like an imposter. Like, who am I to help this person out of pre-foreclosure when I literally just got out of a 3-day weekend seminar learning about pre-foreclosures? But I didn't subscribe to the fake it till you make it mentality. I was very honest with people. And now, did I tell them, hey, I literally just got off of a weekend boot camp? No. But I was like, look, I'm just getting involved in this business. And I was just very transparent and vulnerable. But I think my heart was showing that I wanted to help the person, right? It wasn't just about trying to make some money and do the deal, even though I didn't have any money and I was living with my parents. And so I remember pulling up to the neighborhood, knocking on the door because we had an appointment set, and just feeling uncomfortable. And I knew that me stepping into that feeling was growth. Right. And it might sound cliche and corny and weird to some people, but I knew that in order to get out of the situation I was in, I was going to have to do something different, something I hadn't done or wasn't willing to do. And I put myself through it. And I remember I walked out of that appointment with the actual deed to the property, literally the deed to the property. And I remember going to the next day, there was a foreclosure luncheon meeting that one of these guys locally put on. And I remember saying, I have this deed. What do I do with it? And everybody's looking at me like, what do you mean you have the deed? I'm like, yeah, they signed over the deed to me. Like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? And man, it was just an education from that point forward. I learned more in, 75, 80 days of working on that deal than I ever knew about real estate. And I think that kind of goes back to my original point, is that could I have heard this or read this in a book or a manual? Yeah, but I wasn't going to get the education I got, trying to figure my way through it. And then that first deal led to, 4 or 5 in the first 6 months. And really, I was focused on door knocking and direct mail. Those were my 2 marketing channels. People always ask me, Andrew, what marketing works? What's the best marketing? The truth is, I subscribe to the theory that most marketing works if you're going to work and if you're going to be consistent with it.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. So there's a couple of things in there that this story that I want to highlight for people that are listening and watching this through YouTube is, you guys, this was 2005, 2006 time where Alex is talking about this. And back then, there were not podcasts. Well, there were maybe 1 or 2. There were not this many podcasts and this many YouTube channels and this many Instagram accounts focused on teaching how to go talk to pre-foreclosures and how to do wholesale or installment method or whatever. And I think that and the people that I talk to and coach here kind of agree with this, is that there's so much out there now that it's preventing people from taking that action. You took the action because you had what you needed in front of you, and you said, this is what I need, I'm going to go. Today's beginning investor says, all right, I have this in front of me, but there's this other guy who's talking about this. I need to learn all of this. I need to he's friends with this guy. He's got this strategy. I need to learn that. And I need to learn how to do 20 different things. It's so you never go on the appointment. You never send the mail, make the phone call, knock on the door. And truly, honestly, guys, the education happens when you take the action. All the other stuff is just books, learning, just hearing it. It just doesn't work until you take the action. So there's some good and bad about all the YouTube channels now. So Alex, I love your story. I love how you got started, but that's not where you are today. That was a long time ago. Tell us where you are. How'd you get to what you're doing today?
Yeah, in 2018, it's interesting. My wife and I and the family, we just got back from a cruise a couple days ago. And in 2018, we were on a cruise, and I remember feeling the opposite of freedom. At that point, to give you guys a little bit of context and paint a picture, is at that point I had a team of, I think, 7. I had a lead manager, an acquisition manager, disposition manager, like the typical wholesaling structure and setup we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years. I had that back in 2018. And while I wasn't the one wearing the hat, talking to the seller, going on appointments, I felt like I had built a prison and my business was trapped inside this prison that I had created, yet I didn't have the key to get out. I didn't know how to get out. And I remember feeling very unfulfilled. Fortunately for me, a couple years prior, I had started the Flip Empire podcast. And I remember specifically getting more excitement, joy, fulfillment, genuinely, from somebody like sending me a message on social media about a particular podcast episode that I put out than I did about the next $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 wholesale deal coming up. And I said, I told my wife on that cruise, I said, I feel like I've created this business in a way that I don't think I could sell it. I kind of feel trapped in it. I'm like, something needs to change. So at that point, I started thinking about like, how does the business need to change, or do I just need to go in a different direction? And in 2019, I decided, hey, I'm going to transition out. I got into real estate because I wanted cash flow. I wanted time freedom. I wanted freedom in general. And while we would take our trips and it's provided for my family, and I'm very grateful for that, I always felt like I was like the next deal. It just felt like a hamster race. Like I was on this wheel of constantly chasing deals. And I'm like, this isn't why I got into this business. So 2020, when COVID came, it was a blessing in disguise. I had already mentally decided I'm checked out, I'm done. But I started to unwind the operation. At that point, I had 9 team members. Our overhead, our monthly expenses ballooned to about 40 to 45 grand a month. And I'm like, I don't want to be in a position where I have to close 2 to 3 deals just to break even. Right. And so over the course of 3-4 months, I really just unwound the business. I sold off some of the assets, like some of the lists I had, things like that, but I didn't have a sellable business. And then my coach gave me some great advice. He says, Alex, before you go off to set and conquer the next mountain and start the next business, take some time off, reflect, connect with God, figure out what's the path for you. And I did that, man. And that 4, 5, 6 month sabbatical I took essentially like just allowed me to gain so much clarity. And he was like, you're going to know when it's the time that the time is right to jump back in. And fortunately, I had created some other income streams, so I was able to take some of that time off. But yeah, man, self-storage. I was coaching somebody within our mastermind community that owned the storage facility. And I got an inside look into his business. And I saw, wait a minute, you have time freedom. You have cash flow. You're able to build your wealth exponentially. Like it doesn't require $40,000+ in overhead. He doesn't have any employees. Like all these reasons why I got into real estate, these boxes were being checked off. And so I started to research the commercial real estate and specific asset classes. And I always thought I was going to transition into multifamily until I started seeing the benefits of storage. And I'm like, man, I'm going to plant my flag on this asset class. And then today I own, I think it's 838 storage units across 3 facilities, and have the benefit of just coaching other single family residential investors on how to either build a bridge from their business over into storage, or now that I know this, a lot of the skills, Andrew, that we acquire as real estate investors, specifically in single family, they all translate over into storage. And so if you want to do it as a bolt-on, I'm now showing people how I was able to build that bridge and do that. So yeah, man, it provides the time freedom that I was after and I didn't have in my single family business.
I love it. I love it. So one of the big things that we talk about, and I know you talked about this in your mastermind and with some of your students, is the options in real estate, right? That we get into this, like you said, the whole reason we did was for time freedom and financial freedom back when our kids were heading into school, right into regular day school and out at 2 p.m. Like we really wanted to have a little bit more flexibility. And we said real estate. Okay, well, let's go in. But then when you look around, what's your, like, real estate? Okay, I'm here, but is it commercial, residential? Is it self-storage? Is it, all kinds of different stuff, offices and salons or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different paths you could go down, and you could be a service provider or just a wholesaler that is just finding deals, like a deal finder over and over. So this industry is huge, and most people don't realize that, I think, until they get in like you did of, okay, I'm doing single family. This is where I started. And then you look up one day and you're like, this isn't really where I want to be forever.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing with real estate is that those skills translate to the other pieces and the other parts. So you can go find what fits you the best. So I love that you're able to do that. And to learn it, so close, because you had this mastermind and because you have relationship with students and other coaches. Can you talk about just how that helps people make those connections?
Yeah, dude, I'm so glad you asked that question. And in full disclosure and transparency, I no longer run that mastermind, which was such a blessing in my life because of the impact we had and just how much joy it gave me. But to me, coaches, mentors, masterminds, the right communities, plugging into a podcast like yours, Andrew, like to me, I view it as the ultimate insurance policy. I don't know where I'd be if I didn't have the benefit of being able to pick up the phone and call a coach, a friend, somebody in a mastermind. Hey, I'm going through this. I'm struggling. And by the way, like I don't want to be on this podcast coming across as I have everything figured out because I have challenges just like you. You might be getting started, and yes, I've been in this for a while, but it doesn't mean your challenges go away. I just tend to view it as an opportunity to grow, right? It's like right now I'm dealing with something pretty challenging. And in fact, tomorrow I have a coaching call with my coach who I've been working with for, 6-7 years. And I'm looking forward to just being vulnerable and diving in and saying, hey, I'm dealing with this challenge. Like, I don't know what I don't know. How do I need to be thinking about this? How might you approach this, right? And so, again, I view it as the ultimate insurance policy. And I have, it's interesting that people ask me sometimes, like, what's the best deal you've done? And I've been fortunate to have closed over the course of almost 20 years. I've closed a lot of deals. My best deal, I lost $51,000 on it. That was in 2007. I decided to get involved in my first luxury fix and flip. And I lost the market turns. Between myself and a partner, we lost $102,000. I lost $51,000 of my own money. Why do I say that's the best deal, Andrew? Up until that point, I always saw coaches and mentors as an expense. Now I know it's an investment. Had I paid $5,000, which sounds so minuscule now compared to the 51 I lost and the headaches and the stress, $5,000 was what a local mentor was charging me. If I would have paid that, I know for a fact I wouldn't have gotten involved in that deal because he would have seen the blind spots that I didn't see. I only saw I saw the deal through rose-colored glasses. I didn't know the market was going to be shifting and changing. I didn't see the signs. He would have because he's been there. And so ever since that point, end of 2008, I think I hired my first coach. I have never been a month, forget a year. I've never been a month since end of 2008 until today without a coach.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And like one of the big things you said there was being vulnerable with someone about where you are in your position and your business. Most people, we go through life and if you went through college and things like that, we're not really trained to be entrepreneurs where we go out on this ledge. We were out here all by ourselves on this island and we're running these businesses. And we have a team and you might be in it with your spouse. It's me and my wife, but we're still in a silo. We're kind of alone. And we don't really know where to go, how to ask for help, what to do because we don't have our boss to go to, right? Like the traditional 9-to-5 job. So that's where for me, it's that other person, it's that sounding board, it's the guidance, the advice, the insurance policy that says, you know what, I see this from a different angle. Maybe you should turn those, take those rose-colored glasses off because as entrepreneurs, we are eternal optimists. I like to say to my wife is like, hey, I'm optimistic about this. She's like, slow down. We all need somebody like that in our life. By the way, for those listening and watching, notice that Andrew and we didn't talk about the content. Yes, you're going to get a lot of content in working with a coach and a mentor or being in a mastermind. It's about the relationships. It's always about the relation. To me, that is the most valuable capital you can raise. It's not private capital. It's not money. It's relationship capital. That's it. Oh, 100%. Absolutely. So today you are doing just self-storage, right? What?
I do a little bit of lending as well, but just it's more of an income stream. I don't have a lending business per se. But yeah, self-storage is my main focus when it comes to real estate.
So for me, because I'm thinking about self-storage as well, in my local community, I noticed about a month ago, 6 or 7, I don't know, what do you call them? Units, parks, whatever, self-storage facilities, I guess that's the word.
Facilities.
They all changed names. So some guy came in and bought 5 or 6 of them all in this same area. And I was like, that's unfortunate because those were probably deals that had I been, thinking a little ahead, that might be something for us. So what do you look for? Like, I know what to look for in a single family house. I know where there's value. I know, how to get a discount. What does someone look for? Just get started there.
Yeah, no, it's such a great question, man. Before I answer that question, I think it's important for people listening, and I don't want to assume that everybody knows this because I certainly didn't when I got into commercial. In commercial real estate, and storage is an asset class within commercial, the value is not based on comps or comparable sales like they are in the single family world. The value is based on the income that the asset produces, what's called the net operating income, the NOI. In a nutshell, that's just your revenue minus expenses is your net operating income. Well, what that asset produces is what determines the value. Quite simply, what I look for is mom and pop operated storage facilities. And what I mean by mom and pop is I'm not out there trying to buy Public Storage or Cube Smart or Extra Space. Those are the big Class A facilities owned by REITs, Real Estate Investment Trusts. I'm looking for mom and pop operated facilities in secondary and tertiary markets. So I'm typically looking, Andrew, for markets between 1,000 people and 60,000 people in population. I like to see the population increasing over time. And ideally, I like the average household medium income to be above 50,000. So those are kind of like some initial parameters that I can share with people to start looking. And then quite simply, this is what you do. Go to Google Maps or maps.google.com and then type in a particular city and state that you think you might be interested in owning storage in. And then you're going to click on a little button that says nearby, and you're going to type in self-storage. Well, what that's going to do, Andrew, is it's going to bring up a list of all the storage facilities that Google recognizes and picks up. Immediately, the ones I focus on are the ones that A, do not have a website, B, have no Google reviews, or C, have poor Google reviews. Now, why do I focus on those three things? In storage, Google reviews are extremely important, and most of our tenants, or customers, I should say, over 80% come from online marketing, either pay-per-click or SEO. So to have a mom and pop owner operating a storage facility without a website, it's almost like driving a car with three wheels. It's like you're not you know what I mean? And so it's just an indication, it's a sign that they might not be efficient, dialed in as an operator. And it's the equivalent of what, if you're driving for dollars, it's the equivalent of seeing like tall grass. Like it doesn't mean they're a motivated seller, but it's an indication that there might be some motivation there, right? And so there's a lot more I can share, but I want to kind of give people some specific things they can do. And then quite simply, it's free marketing, cold calling. I like to call and I like to humble myself. If you don't own a storage facility, when I got started, I say, hey, Andrew, I came across your storage facility on Google. I realize this is random and you don't know me, but my wife and I are looking to get in this business, and I'm just looking to learn from somebody who is seasoned and experienced. It looks like you have a great facility. Do you mind if I ask you a question or two? Maybe you can point me in the right direction. I have found that approach, when you humble yourself and you just ask for, if they have a minute or two, it opens up a dialogue. Most people want to help. And then eventually at some point, the conversation can transition to, I always ask, well, do you know of anybody that might have a facility for sale? You know, because we're actively looking for one. I probably say 30, 40, maybe 50% of the time, they'll say, well, actually, and then boom, now you've entered into a different part of the conversation with them. But cold calling is free. I want to say it's simple, but I realize people sometimes have a little bit of a challenge with that. But what I would encourage people to understand is that a conversation with a mom and pop storage owner is so much easier, in my opinion, than with a quote-unquote motivated seller. They're not emotionally attached to the asset, and they're a business owner, so they kind of understand.
Yeah, I love that. And so for those of you who are out there thinking, oh, there's no way I could ever do this. This is too big. You said markets for 1,000 people up to 60,000. So we're talking the smaller markets. And you said, and this blows my mind, companies, businesses that are retail focused, they're public focused, and they don't have a website. Y'all, that's like low hanging fruit. I feel like if there's any business that doesn't have a website, you might want to cold call them and see if they want to sell, because there's some value add there, right? So I love that, and you are actively helping people kind of transition into self-storage, but also you're looking for deals. So
yes,
how can people reach out to you? How can they contact you if they want to ask more or share some deals?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it, man. I'll give 2 ways that people can connect with me. And I'm actually going to share my mobile number, my personal cell phone. If anybody I have some resources that are free. It's not like a paywall, or it's not a squeeze page or anything. Just free resources I'm happy to give you guys to get started in this business. If you text me the word storage and just let me know that you heard me on Andrew's podcast, 305-318-6213, 305-318-6213. And for people that are interested in learning more about getting started with storage, www.storagewins.com, WINS, storagewins.com.
I love it. I love it. Well, y'all, we'll put that in the show notes. So if you missed that, you can just click and it'll be there for you. And so, Alex, man, I really appreciate that. We are running out of time. We've hit the wall here. I'm going to go. I have to get in the car right now, and I'm literally going to go look at this other storage unit that I don't think they sold. So I'm going to see what else is out there. I can't believe they don't have websites. So that's going to be my trigger. If there's a storage unit without a website, I'm calling you to help me get the deal. But y'all, if there's anything that you need to get started, go to dealfindersclub.com. We've got a lot of resources there as well. We've got the podcast link, some other links, just so that you can get moving down this path. I know that there's tons of books, tons of podcasts, but you have to get out and you have to take steps, take actionable steps to get into this business. Otherwise, you will be reading books and listening to podcasts all the way through retirement. So, y'all, get out there, take your next step. And if you don't know what that is, if you need some instruction on what that step might be, just click the link below and just book a call with me. I can help you in 15 minutes. We're not going to diagnose your whole business, but I can usually give you what might be your next step. All right? So until next time, love to see you guys at our local events, dealfindersclub.com, and we'll see you at the next podcast. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the REI Deal Finders podcast. You can find out more and apply to be a part of the REI Deal Finder community at reidealfinders.club.